So the Toronto Raptors lose a great game, a highly competitive game to the New York Knicks. And I want to dive into that in this video, but I think what I really want to point out is what I said at the very beginning of this season, that the Toronto Raptors, when healthy, when, if and when they can get healthy, they are a playoff team. Not just playing, hoping to get into a first round, sweep exit in the playoffs. No, they are a legitimate playoff team. And it seems like on Twitter and other spaces that Raptor fans aren't really smelling what Masai Ujiri and the Toronto Raptors organization is cooking. They look at this team and they seem to have nothing but complaints. And I get it. You want to win. You want to win. And sometimes it doesn't look good. But I think there's an opportunity for a lot of you to kind of sit back and learn something. And I want to dive into that in this video. But before I do, this video is brought to you by Bridges and Stones Family and Relationship Care. You know, the holidays can be tough for a lot of us, whether it's distance from family, relationship issues, social isolation, or struggling to adapt to the weather of this season. Depression and loneliness can get to us all. This doesn't have to be something to dread, though. It can also be your opportunity to learn coping skills and the steps you need to move into healthier relationships. Contact Bridges and Stones today for a free consultation with a professional coach to get the support you need. Don't struggle alone. The link is in the description box below. So when I say learn something, I don't want to come off. I could come off like a know-it-all. Okay, I've been a bit of a know-it-all my whole life, but if I'm honest with you, I also love to learn. I also love the game of basketball. I've also coached it for 15 years. College, high school, individual, AAU. I was a personal trainer for 15 years, right? I've worked in mental health. I've worked with athletes, sports psychology. I've done the full gamut. I've traveled the world doing this thing. So I've learned a few things. And on this channel, I basically just share my thoughts. And so I'm going to share a couple thoughts on this Toronto Raptors team because I think that sometimes fans in this generation, in this era of mass media, social media, where there's just so much content out there, I think the overconsumption of content has a lot of fans in this perpetual state of needing to see this kind of linear line of progress where things consistently get better up, 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 and they don't understand how to interpret dips. And I want to go into a quick segue with that. I remember I was in a financial meeting with this individual. It was back in like 2005. And in California, in the United States, we had this huge housing crisis. And I was in this meeting where this older gentleman, this older guy, he must have been in his 70s, and he was sharing with my mentor at the time some insight into the housing market. And he said that him and his colleagues had been tracking this downward trend. No, sorry, this upward trend of the housing market. And they knew from experience, they're over 70 years old, right? From experience that it was going to bust and that it was going to drop. And that with the drop off was going to come an opportunity. And as the drop off came and everybody was in this crisis mode, oh no, no, they were plotting and they were beginning to liquidize all these resources so that when it hit a certain point, they would just start buying as many homes as they could get their hands on. In fact, not just any home, but they were looking for the homes in the best markets, in the best neighborhoods that they could target. And when it hit that point, they did. And they made an absolute killing. Now, for me, being more community oriented, I was like, well, how terrible is that? If you know this is about to happen, why aren't you telling people? Why aren't you warning people? You know what I mean? But that's a different issue. All that's to say is that sometimes people understand trends. Sometimes you understand how these things go. And you've seen it come and go over time. And you're learned enough to anticipate it and to be intentional about it. All that's to say is this trend that the Toronto Raptors are on. This is like when the stock drops or the market drops and you begin to buy. And the buy for the Toronto Raptors was first Scotty Barnes. That was the first buy. Then it was the selling Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, right? Selling off of assets, letting assets go. And then it was acquiring RJ Barrett, and it was acquiring Emmanuel Quickly. But they didn't just stop there. They didn't just stop there. They also began to draft guys like Jacoby Walter. They began to supplement the roster with guys like Davion Mitchell. They began to bring in guys like Kelly Olynyk. They began to put together a team that was going to have flexibility, cap-wise, but also a lot of talent to be able to win. To be able to win. And my prognosis at the beginning of the season was that this was, in fact, a playoff team. Now, I know some people kind of ignored it, just looked at it. Some people were excited as well, and some people were not. But when I looked at this roster, I said to myself, okay, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes. If that's your core, keep in mind Scotty Barnes was an all-star last year. Keep in mind RJ Barrett has had a consistent upward trajectory trend of getting better and better every year. He's playing like an all-star. He literally is. And then you have Emmanuel Quickly, who was ascending in his own right. I thought he was going to be something like a Fred VanVleet type of a player, where he can get you 20 a game, about 5 or 6 assists, can play solid defense at the point of attack. It was going to be a high-volume three-point shooter on really good efficiency. Right? If this is your core, that's a core that can probably compete with just about any other team if you have a solid team around them. And they do. Jakob Poeltl is one of the better starting centers. Look, say what you want. Say what you want about Jakob. Look, this man right here is better than, I would say, the bottom 15, if not 20 centers in the NBA. Outside of Jokic, outside of Embiid, who's hurt all the time, outside of Wemby, you'd be kind of hard-pressed. Oh, and maybe Domantas Sabonis and Bam Adebayo. You'd be kind of hard-pressed to find a better starting center. I mean, when you look around the league, you got guys like DeAndre Ayton. You got Clint Capella. We all like Kristaps Porzingis when he's healthy. And then you got guys like Nicholas Claxton, right, who weighs 220 pounds, right? You look around the league, Yusuf Nurkic, Kayvon Looney, and you begin to see, like, well, having a 7'1" defensive-minded center with soft hands who can pass the ball, finish around the rim with either hand. He's a really good screen setter. He's physical. He's consistent. He's reliable. He's probably a damn good starting center. And then you go further down the roster line. You got Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown, who's been a champion, who's been a part of winning for most of his career. One of those versatile Swiss Army knife guys. You got Davion Mitchell. And then you got draftees like Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Jonathan Mobo, who was a great find, Jamal Sheed. You bring in guys like Bruno Fernando. I even like Ulrich Kamchi. I think he's going to be good in a few years. Ochai Agbaji, another Kansas guy who also played with Grady Dick. Great chemistry find there. You begin to see a roster that has defense, versatility, athleticism, size, length. You begin to see a playoff type team. But this team hasn't been healthy at all. At all. And so I get it. You haven't seen it round into form. And then last night comes. Kelly Olynyk was playing. And you have Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett leading the way, going up against a New York Knicks team that's competing at the top of the Eastern Conference. And then you have the Toronto Raptors going toe-to-toe and leading throughout the course of that game. If Scotty Barnes doesn't get hurt, the Raptors likely walk away with a win. And even after he got hurt, you saw guys like Jacoby Walter pick up the slack. You saw him step up. And you began to see that this team has a lot of talent on it, a lot of young talent. And by the time that the game ended, even though they just barely missed out on a couple of made shots and a couple of missed shots, right? Mikal Bridges, corner three, Karl Anthony Towns, big shot, and that's the game. But you can't deny what you saw. You can't deny what you saw. When you look at this roster, when you look at this team, when you look at how they were able to compete, I know a lot of the criticisms of the coach and a lot of criticisms of this roster, and everybody wants to see more, but are you seeing what you already have? Is a playoff team. Look, you got another 50 something, almost 60 games to go for the rest of the season. If you can get healthy, if you can get quickly back to partner with RJ Barrett, you got guys like Jonathan Mobo stepping up. You got Kelly Olynyk, who's now healthy. You still got Chris Boucher. You got guys like Ochai Agbaji, who's starting to get comfortable in his role. You got these other guys, Jakob Poeltl playing his best basketball of his career. And if guys like Bruce Brown can get healthy, you are going to start seeing more and more of these games that they are in it. And if they can have 2, if not 3, of those core guys, of Barrett, Quickly, and Barnes, they're going to have one hell of a record down the back end of this season. And personally, if they could sneak into a play-in game and be healthy, God help whoever they have to go up against. Because that's one of those cores. This is one of those teams that are not scared of anybody. They're not scared of anybody. This isn't one of those fragile Charlotte Hornets type of a team, Chicago Bulls type of a team, where they aren't even sure if they're legit. These are the Raptors. These are the Raptors. Everybody on this team believes. And when they're healthy, well, that translates to a whole lot of wins. But as always, I want to know what you all think. Do you think that this team is a playoff team? Do you think that what you saw last night against the Knicks was real, or was it a fluke? What do you think of the outlook for the rest of the season? Get at me in the comment section. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'm going to get at y'all next time. Peace.